He doesn't need to know you're ready to walk away. He needs to feel it in your silence. A powerful woman never warns. She simply moves. She doesn't beg, she doesn't explain, she just exits. Her next move, private, her peace, non-negotiable. When she leaves, it's without sound, but with impact. Because real power never announces itself. If a woman wants to protect her peace and preserve her power in a relationship, one of the most important things she must keep guarded is her emotional triggers. These are the buttons that, when pushed, cause an immediate reaction: hurt, anger, fear, insecurity, or over-explaining. When a man learns exactly what upsets you, disarms you, or destabilizes you emotionally, he may begin to use it consciously or unconsciously to gain control, assert dominance, or manipulate situations to his advantage. The reality is, not everyone who gets close to you has the emotional maturity or respect to handle your vulnerabilities with care. Emotional intelligence is a gift, but it becomes a weapon in the hands of someone who lacks empathy or self-control. That's why revealing your emotional triggers too early, too openly, or too often can create an imbalance in power. You become predictable. And when you're predictable, you're easy to disarm. You may think that being open about your triggers fosters honesty, connection, and closeness. And yes, in healthy relationships, vulnerability can deepen intimacy. But that only works after trust is proven, consistency is shown, and safety is felt. Until then, your triggers are sacred. They are your private emotional map. Not everyone deserves to read it. Let's be real. Some men are masterful at testing boundaries. They will gently poke at your triggers just to see how far they can go, how much they can get away with, or how quickly they can make you unravel. Not always maliciously, sometimes just out of habit or insecurity. But once they see what makes you flinch, cry, chase, or explain, there's a subtle shift. You're no longer in full control of yourself. They are. And that shift is dangerous because now every disagreement, every silence, every misunderstanding becomes an opportunity to provoke a reaction instead of resolve an issue. You owe it to yourself to stay composed even when it's hard. That doesn't mean you numb yourself or hide your truth forever. It means you master your triggers privately before exposing them publicly. Emotional self-mastery is not coldness, it's clarity. You know what hurts, but you no longer bleed when it's touched. You know what irritates you, but you've learned to respond, not react. That inner strength protects you from emotional manipulation disguised as romance or intimacy. Here's something powerful: when you don't react, you take away the other person's power to control the moment. That's how you reclaim authority over your emotions. A man can raise his voice, act distant, compare you, criticize you, or withdraw affection. But if you've already mastered your triggers, none of it touches your core. You see it, you feel it, but you don't let it shake you. That calm in the storm, that's unshakable self-worth, that's power. The goal isn't to be fake. It's to be free. Free from emotional dependence, free from codependency, and free from anyone's attempt to shrink your peace. When you protect your emotional triggers, you filter out the men who thrive on chaos, confusion, and control. You stop entertaining the emotionally immature. You raise the standard for who gets to know the real, unguarded you. This is not about being closed off. It's about being selective. You don't hand over your emotional blueprints to someone just because they show interest. You wait. You observe. You let consistency prove intention. And even then, you share gently, not all at once. You control the pace, not your emotions. That's the difference between giving love and giving power away. Many women were never taught this. We were raised to believe that love means total openness, that if you're not fully raw, you're being fake. But the truth is, emotional safety comes first, and safety is something that must be earned, not assumed. By keeping your triggers private, you are not being secretive. You are being wise. Don't make it easy for someone to unravel you. Don't give them the blueprint to break you down. Instead, give them the opportunity to rise up, to be consistent, kind, emotionally safe, and respectful. If they prove themselves, then yes, go deeper. Be soft. Be open. But never forget it, your emotions are powerful, and your triggers are sacred. Guard them until you're absolutely sure they'll be handled with care. You don't need to be emotionless. You need to be emotionally intelligent. And part of that intelligence is knowing what to protect and when. A woman who understands her triggers and controls her reactions is a woman who can't be played. She's in her power, not her pain. And that is the most attractive, magnetic, and unshakable version of her. Your finances are your business. Period. A woman's financial status, whether she's thriving or barely getting by, is not something a man should have access to early in a relationship. In fact, it's one of the most important things to keep private until a deep level of trust, consistency, and partnership is firmly established. Money is power, and how you handle yours says a lot about your independence, discipline, and long-term vision. But not every man deserves access to that part of your life, especially not in the beginning. Too often, women reveal their financial situation in the name of transparency, hoping it builds trust or proves they're not hiding anything. But financial honesty is not the same as financial exposure. You're not obligated to explain your income, savings, spending habits, or debt to someone just because you're dating them. That's not transparency, it's oversharing, and it can backfire. When a man knows your financial position too early, it subtly shifts the dynamics. If he knows you're financially stable, he might begin to rely on you emotionally or materially before proving his own stability. He might expect you to hold it down or help out when it's really not your responsibility. If he knows you're struggling financially, he may judge you, underestimate your value, or even try to use it as a point of control, thinking you'll tolerate more because you have fewer options. To either way, your financial truth becomes leverage in the wrong hands. You don't need to lie. You need to limit access. Your bank account isn't a talking point. Your financial plan isn't a first date discussion. You're allowed to protect what you've worked for, what you're building, and how you choose to manage your resources. Your money is not just about dollars. It's about boundaries. It's about knowing your worth without having to explain the numbers. In relationships, money has always been a complex issue. It influences power dynamics, decision-making, and long-term compatibility. But early on, the only thing you should be assessing is character, not credit scores. A man should be investing in you emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, not measuring your financial potential. If he's asking too many money questions too soon, that's not curiosity. It's a red flag. He might be more interested in what you can provide than who you truly are. Some women make the mistake of leading with financial strength, thinking that if they show how independent and capable they are, they'll be more respected. And while independence is attractive, exposure is risky. There's a difference between being a high-value woman and being a high-yield target. Not every man who says, "I love an independent woman," actually knows how to handle one. Some just want access to the perks without the commitment or the effort. A smart woman understands this. Your financial power is part of your value, not your identity. You don't need to prove you can carry a relationship, fund a lifestyle, or help him get on his feet. That's not your job. If he's the right man, he'll come already standing on his own. Your money should complement a partnership, not become the foundation of it. There's also a deeper layer, emotional safety around money. Finances can trigger shame, fear, pride, or even trauma. Many women grew up in households where money was a source of stress, control, or instability. So when a man starts asking about it, it can stir anxiety or insecurity. Protecting that part of your life isn't secrecy, it's self-preservation. It gives you the time and space to decide if and when you're ready to share that part of your journey. And when the time comes, when trust has been built and he's proven himself stable, respectful, and secure, you can share. But even then, you share intentionally, you set boundaries, you maintain independence. Joint plans don't mean joint exposure. A committed relationship may involve financial discussions, but they should come from mutual respect, not pressure or assumption. Remember, a man who respects you will never rush you to disclose your financial status. He'll focus on who you are, not what you have. And if he starts making you feel like you owe him financial clarity early on, walk away. You don't owe access to your finances just because someone shows you attention. You are not an ATM. You are not a backup plan. You are not a stepping stone. You are a whole, powerful, self-sufficient woman. Whether you're building from scratch or managing abundance, your finances are your lane, and only the right man gets invited into that lane when the time is right. So protect your money, your goals, and your financial boundaries. Be smart, be intentional, and above all, be unapologetic about keeping that part of your life sacred. Because a woman who guards her resources is not cold. She's calculating her worth. And the man who's worthy of her won't mind waiting to earn that level of trust. There's a reason your past relationships should remain in the past, especially when it comes to sharing the details with a new man. Every woman carries a history, lessons learned, pain endured, growth achieved, but that history doesn't need to be unpacked and laid bare for every man you date. There is a huge difference between being honest and being overexposed. Sharing the intricate details of who hurt you, how they did it, what you tolerated, and how long you stayed can create more harm than connection, especially early in a relationship. The men often ask about your past because they're trying to understand who you are. Some are genuinely curious. Some want to assess how much damage has been done. Some just want to compare themselves to who came before. But the truth is, once a man has a clear picture of how badly someone else treated you, it can go one of two ways. He either becomes more protective, or he sees your tolerance for pain as a license to test your limits. And unfortunately, the second reaction is more common than we'd like to believe. If a man knows your ex cheated multiple times and you stayed, he may subconsciously believe you'd tolerate disloyalty again. If he hears how long you chased someone who didn't love you, he may think you'll chase him too if he pulls away. If you reveal that you were financially used or emotionally manipulated, he may be tempted to see how much he can get away with before you draw the line. You think you're sharing to create connection, but he might be calculating how far your boundaries can be pushed. Protecting your past is not about hiding. It's about setting the standard. You are not defined by your exes, your heartbreaks, or the pain you overcame. You are defined by how you carry yourself now, how you love, how you lead, and how you protect your peace. A strong woman knows that her story is powerful, but it's not for everyone. It's for the man who proves he's emotionally safe, stable, and trustworthy. Until then, your history is sacred. Another danger of oversharing your past relationships is that it can create emotional clutter. When you speak about your exes constantly, you're not just revisiting the past, you're reviving it. You bring old wounds into new spaces. You make the new man compete with old ghosts. And no matter how healed you think you are, the more you speak about someone who once broke you, the more you invite their energy back into your present life. It's not fair to you, and it's not fair to the person trying to get to know you for who you are now, not who you were when you were hurting. Also, not every man deserves access to your healing journey. Your vulnerability is a privilege, not a right. Just because someone shows interest doesn't mean they should be handed the keys to your emotional archives. Let your actions, your energy, and your presence speak for your growth. Let your strength and softness show without needing to unpack the trauma that built them. There's dignity in mystery, and there's power in restraint. And let's be honest, some men don't handle that information well. They get jealous of your past. They compare themselves. They start imagining things. They ask intrusive questions, trying to piece together details you were never supposed to reveal in the first place. Then arguments start. Insecurities rise. Trust gets shaky, all because you opened a door that didn't need to be opened. There's also this when a man sees you constantly referencing your ex. He may start to question whether you're really over it. Even if you claim you've moved on, if your ex is always part of the conversation, it suggests emotional residue is still there. Silence, in this case, can be more powerful than any explanation. It shows emotional maturity, not secrecy. It shows you've made peace with your past without needing to relive it. When the time is right, and the relationship has deepened, and real trust has been built, there may be moments to share your story in pieces, not for validation, not for pity, but for mutual understanding. But even then, you decide what gets shared, you decide how much. You control the narrative. And if a man ever tries to make you feel guilty for not disclosing every painful detail of your past, that's not someone who's emotionally safe. That's someone looking for leverage. A woman's past relationships are her personal library, full of chapters, some closed, some still healing, all valuable. But not every reader deserves a page. Not every man gets to know what made you cry, how many chances you gave, or what it took to rebuild yourself. He only needs to know one thing, that you're here now, stronger, wiser, and no longer tolerating what you once did. In love, privacy is protection. Silence is strength, and restraint is power. Keep your past sacred. Share only with those who have proven they can hold it gently. Because the right man won't need to know every scar to recognize your worth. He'll honor your healing without needing proof. There is immense power in boundaries, but even more power in silence. When a woman starts telling a man all the lines he shouldn't cross, what she won't tolerate, what will make her leave, what behaviors are unacceptable, she believes she's being clear and strong. But in reality, she's giving a roadmap to her emotional limits. She's laying out her defense system, thinking it will keep her safe. What she doesn't realize is that real boundaries don't need to be broadcasted. They need to be enforced. Quietly, consistently, without warning. You don't need to tell a man, if you ignore me, I'll leave. You don't need to say, if you cheat, I'm done. You don't need to explain, if you disrespect me, I'll walk away. Because the moment you have to announce those boundaries, you also introduce the possibility that they might be tested. And men who are unsure of themselves or used to manipulating situations will take that as a challenge, not a limit. They'll push slowly, subtly, gently. They'll see if you really mean it. And often women fall into the trap of explaining, justifying, or giving second chances because they feel they must remind him where the lines are. But a woman in her power doesn't repeat herself. She doesn't explain her worth or bargain her boundaries. She lets her silence and her distance speak when a line is crossed. And when that happens, it's clear. No debate. No drama. Just presence or absence. That's what makes boundaries real. Not how loudly you declare them, but how firmly you hold them when tested. A man who hears you talk about your boundaries all the time may not take them seriously. Why? Because there's a difference between saying, I value myself, and living like you do. If your actions contradict your words, if you set a boundary and then break it to keep him comfortable, he'll stop respecting the lines you draw. He'll begin to treat your standards like suggestions instead of requirements. That's why silence is such a powerful strategy. When you don't explain what you'll do, you just do it. You show that your self-respect isn't up for discussion. You don't argue about how you should be treated. You simply stop engaging with anyone who treats you less than you deserve. That's when people start taking you seriously, because you don't play about yourself. You don't owe a man a presentation of your standards. Let him discover them through experience. Let your energy, behavior, and choices reveal what you allow and what you don't. If he's aligned with your values, he'll naturally respect the space. If he's not, he'll stumble, and you'll remove yourself without fanfare. Think about this. Some men are great listeners, but not great learners. They'll hear you explain your pain points, your past experiences, and your emotional needs. Instead of protecting those things, they'll use them to avoid short-term consequences or gain short-term advantage. They'll apologize at the right moments, say the right things, and do just enough to keep you from walking away without ever truly changing. Why? Because they studied your warnings, not your worth. Now contrast that with a woman who simply doesn't play. She doesn't make long speeches when disrespected. She doesn't beg to be seen. She doesn't tolerate patterns that steal her peace. She withdraws. She creates space. She chooses herself. And that silence, that sudden lack of access, that's what gets respected. That's when a man understands that the relationship is built on earned trust, not endless tolerance. This doesn't mean being cold or passive aggressive. It means being calm, deliberate, and intentional. It means that your boundaries are not up for debate. You are not looking for validation or explanation. You are showing, not telling. And there's a world of difference between a woman who has boundaries and a woman who lives them without compromise. This is especially important when emotions are involved. When you care for someone, the temptation to explain yourself increases. You want to make them understand how you feel, why something hurt, why you need things to change. And while communication is essential in any relationship, over-explaining is not. Once you've expressed your truth once, you don't need to repeat it. After that, it's all about what you allow. One of the most damaging patterns women fall into is giving too many chances after clearly stated boundaries are crossed. Every time you let someone disrespect you and stay, you teach them that your boundaries are flexible. But every time you hold the line, without yelling or begging, you teach them that your peace comes before their presence. There is deep feminine strength in restraint, in not reacting, in letting people wonder, not because you're playing games, but because you refuse to play with your self-respect. You move with calm confidence, and that energy is magnetic. It's what makes men take you seriously and what keeps emotionally immature ones from wasting your time. So stop announcing your boundaries like warnings. Stop teaching people how to navigate your limits. Start showing them with action. Speak less. Watch more. Move accordingly. Your calm is your power. Your silence is your filter. And your boundaries, they're not meant to be talked about. They're meant to be felt. There's something incredibly powerful about a woman who holds her vision close to her heart, especially the parts that don't include anyone else. A woman who knows who she is, where she's going, and what she'll do with or without a man is untouchable in the best way possible. That kind of woman doesn't beg, chase, or perform for validation. She doesn't make emotional decisions to keep someone around. She's centered, grounded, silent in her strength. And one of the most important things she must always protect is this, her ability to walk away without making a sound. When a man knows that you have the power to leave, but you never stop talking about it, threatening it, or using it as a way to gain control, he stops believing you. The threat becomes noise. It loses its weight. But when a woman moves in silence, when she keeps her next move to herself, she becomes unpredictable in a good way. Her presence is never guaranteed. Her peace is never negotiable, and her self-worth is never for sale. A woman should never fully reveal how prepared she is to move on, not out of manipulation, but out of wisdom. Not because she wants to keep someone on edge, but because she knows her stability doesn't depend on their presence. She understands that the power of detachment is strongest when it's not announced. When you keep reminding a man, "I don't need you," or "I'll leave if this keeps happening," it starts to sound like a plea for attention, not a statement of truth. The more you say it, the less impactful it becomes. But when you don't say anything at all, when you let your silence speak, your absence explain, it changes everything. Silence is not weakness. It is power refined. A woman who doesn't broadcast her next move forces people to treat her with respect because they know she won't wait around forever. They know she's not tied to the outcome. They know she'll love fully, but she'll also leave fully without second guessing if the energy shifts. That kind of woman doesn't lose sleep over people who don't appreciate her. She doesn't fight for what's fading. She doesn't stay where she isn't valued. And most importantly, she doesn't explain her exit. Keeping your vision to yourself also protects your inner peace. Not everyone deserves access to your emotional GPS. When you start revealing how you're strategizing your next steps, whether it's to distance yourself, start fresh, or cut things off, you give the other person the power to anticipate, manipulate, or emotionally interfere. Some people, especially emotionally immature men, will sense you're drifting and suddenly change behavior, not out of real transformation, but to buy more time. They'll love bomb, future, fake, or guilt trip you back into their comfort zone. But when you stay quiet and still, when you don't reveal your plan, they never get the chance to play defense. You move, and they realize it after it's done. And that's exactly why your ability to walk away in silence must be protected at all costs. It's not about coldness, it's about clarity. It's about knowing that real power isn't shown through loud declarations. It's revealed in still decisions. When you stop over-explaining why you're pulling back, when you stop giving warning after warning, you start making people take you seriously. They stop looking for the loopholes and start recognizing the limits. The truth is, when a woman knows she's enough on her own, her tolerance drops. Not because she's arrogant, but because she's aligned. She knows her value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see it. She knows that if a man doesn't step up, she doesn't need to step down to match his energy. She elevates quietly. She detaches silently. She exits gracefully. Your vision without him is your power. It's your reminder that you were whole before he arrived, and you'll be whole if he leaves. That doesn't mean you don't love deeply. It means your love isn't rooted in fear. You're not afraid of starting over. You're not afraid of being alone, because you've learned that losing someone who doesn't value you is not loss, it's liberation. A man who's worth keeping will recognize this energy. He won't be intimidated by it. He'll be inspired by it. He'll see that you don't rely on threats to maintain standards. You simply embody them. He'll feel the difference between a woman who stays because she has no choice and a woman who stays because she's choosing him over her solitude. So keep your next move to yourself. Keep your exit strategy sacred. Let your silence create boundaries that words never could. When you no longer announce your breaking points, you reclaim the power to walk away from anything that doesn't serve your peace, without drama or delay, because in the end, the strongest move a woman can make isn't screaming that she's done. It's simply being done, quietly, completely, with no need to explain.